Minister, dear Mrs. Pazzoli, Mr. Gunaris, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to your very interesting conference. I'm really delighted to be here with you this evening, and I hope we will have a fruitful discussion about how to shape the future of our agricultural sector in Europe, and which role innovation and other creative elements will play to achieve our goals. Let's start with the four challenges. So, one of the challenges is clearly the economic crisis we are facing. The other one is climate change. This is also a pertinent question. But then, as a consequence of all these new economic conditions and natural conditions, we are facing much more market volatility than in the past. And the final challenge is what's going to happen with our rural areas? What's going to happen with our countryside? So, therefore, we must learn our lessons. First of all, we must realize that it doesn't make any sense to blame each other. Our economies are too much interdependent in the meantime, so that we can only cooperate or we will lose altogether. The next challenge, the growing market volatility. What we have seen in the last, let's say, 50 years, this is the agricultural development, the evolution of commodity price indices in agriculture. And what you can see here is the last peak. This is the peak 2008, 2009. And if you compare what happened before, then you can see that still the first oil crisis in 1972, 1973 created a bigger peak than this last crisis. But the last crisis had more comments in the newspapers than the peak in the 1970s. You can also see here that the food prices are more or less exactly following the agricultural commodity prices. You can see that the energy prices they were in the past rather different from the agricultural prices, but they are coming nearer and nearer. So, in other words, the influence, especially if we would look at the oil prices, then you can see this more drastically. The crop production sector especially is more and more driven by the oil prices, and clearly automatically then also by the fertilizer prices, and not so much by the metal industry. Where is this growing market volatility coming from? It is partly demand driven. We see a growing demand in many developing countries for cereals and plant fats, especially in those developing countries which are coming out of the status of least developed countries. We have a growing demand in the emerging countries for animal protein, especially meat, and here mainly poultry, and partly pig meat, less beef. And we have in our countries still an increasing segmentation of our markets going on. What does this mean, this increasing segmentation? You must simply go to a supermarket and you will see how big the differences of the consumers are in the meantime. I mean, you have the biggest group, still the biggest group, they are only interested in cheap food. This is the reality. Anything else is wishful thinking. But you have an increasing group of consumers interested, for example, in in organic food, or in what is called ethical food, or in things like the food miles, or in things like is animal welfare respected in the food production sector, or in CSR, corporate social responsibility respected, and so on and so forth. And if we would like to meet all these different consumer interests, then we must present different types of food, so it is impossible to fit all with one type of food. And this process will most likely go on also in the future. On the other hand, on the supply side, here we are facing a situation partly because of the weather problems, because of climate change, that there is an increased alternation. In other words, a good harvest and then a bad harvest and then again a good harvest and so on. But also there are clear risks of increasing weather disasters and therefore misharvests. Then we have seen, especially also in 2008, and this was partly one of the reasons why it was possible to be successful with this new type of speculation, that we had very, very low ending stocks. In 2008, before the harvest of 2008, the worldwide ending stocks for cereals, the amount of cereals available was not for more than 28 days.